launch of the team that exists today, where I'm empowering people and doing more training. It grew out of a need. I've always loved being an entrepreneur and building businesses. However, it took on a different shift when I realized I had to get things off my plate and learn how to do that in a way that it's all about communication with clients. There's so much to it that you have to figure out over time what works for you.
Welcome to the Real Freedom Show, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Real Freedom, Real Estate Leverage Freedom, where we talk about building time and financial freedom and different things inside of the real estate space. I am your host, Mike Swenson. If you want to get started on getting into real estate, learning about real estate, check out our website, freedomthroughrealestate.com. We've got a lot of great podcasts to watch, articles to read, information to consume. Ultimately, we want you to take some action, take some steps towards achieving your goals inside of the real estate space. So for today's episode, I'm super excited. We've got Scott Harris here. Scott is a real estate agent, owner of a team in the New York City area, also has a podcast, a book coming out called The Pursuit of Home, and you've got a lot of great stories to be able to share and kind of guiding people through all the drama, all the stuff that happens in a real estate transaction. As we know, it's a very stressful time for our buyers and sellers, so you've got a lot of great information to share. So Scott, we're so excited to have you on the show.
Really glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Why don't you just start by kind of sharing a little bit about your background? I think people always like to kind of hear how you got into real estate, why you got into real estate, and how that process worked, and we'll just take it from there.
Sure. Well, I know you're in Minnesota. I grew up on the other end of the Mississippi in New Orleans, where it dumps into the Gulf of Mexico, and moved to the Northeast for college, and then stayed there. Lived in Boston for a few years, and really got my sales chops. I honed my sales chops there, which we can talk more about. But ultimately made my way to New York about 22 years ago, so kind of mid 2002, and started in real estate at the beginning of 2003. It was really my stepmom, and people often know you better than you know yourself. She was the one who said, "Hey, I think you'd be really great at real estate," and lo and behold, she was right. It was just like a perfect fit for all the things that I'd done before. And been building my business ever since. It's a residential real estate practice right in the heart of New York City. If you look at the Macy's Day Parade, I'm not too. I don't live too far from there. My office isn't far from there either, and that's kind of where I make my home, and professionally and personally.
I believe that people that come from outside of real estate into real estate, kind of your niche really is taking the best advantages of the gifts that you have and the experience that you have. For some people, it's the people skills. For some people, it's the, being able to be a driver and continue to push forward and push forward. So everybody kind of comes into real estate with some gifts and abilities of what they've done in the past. What is it for you that you feel kind of led to your success in real estate early on, just based on your past history before that?
That's actually a really good way to frame it, Mike. My gifts are largely around people and wanting to help people. So I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always been able to structure things. So like the business side, the entrepreneurship of real estate really attracts me. It's like it's an open playing field. You can do what you want. But in terms of what actually helped me grow my business, it's that I'm really interested in people. What is their story? What makes them interesting? What are they trying to do? What are they about? And then I've always been someone to make connections. I'm always, and so early in my business, early in my career, I might listen to someone I learn about what they're doing, and I just it's like a never-ending interview process of all these people. Then I meet someone else, and I was making matches. It's like a philanthropy. I connect like someone who could be one of their biggest donors, or somebody is running another something else, and I connect a credit card vendor, and that became their biggest client. And so over time, it was like I was just adding value, not really through real estate necessarily, but just connecting people. And then my real estate business sort of on the heels of that, I was someone who just wanted to be of service. And I was learning the real estate, the nuts and bolts of real estate all along. And it's that matchmaking, getting to know people deeply and having like an intuitive sense of what might help them. And then definitely years and years of sales skills that I built over time, knowing how to help, knowing what to say, what not to say. There's certainly a lot of sales training that kind of helped me in the background, but really it's just moving that, that little incremental growth. But out of the gate, I also worked 7 days a week. I took like 3 days off the entire of my first year in real estate. And New York is, some people might think it's a super competitive place to try to do real estate, but it also, there's so much transaction volume that if you just work hard, show up, say and do, do what you say you're going to do, you can't help but be successful if you have some basic sales skills.
Now, what for you? I mean, obviously, you had those people skills, you had the sales skills. In terms of finding business, like I know getting into real estate is a challenge, especially right now. It's a tough time for people to get in. Did you have kind of a plan of here's how I'm going to go get my business? Did you just kind of approach it of I'm just going to add value and kind of see what happens? Is it I'm going to kind of work my natural network? How much intentionality did you have or pursuit of more of a quote unquote lead generation strategy to get business in those early days? Or was it just work 7 days a week and something's going to come to fruition eventually?
All those questions kind of fit together pretty nicely. I was working at a company that was ultimately acquired by Corcoran, Barbara Corcoran's old company that she had sold. And that company had a wonderful program to help you kind of, how are you going to generate your own leads? And it was very much like here, when you're in the rental, I started doing rentals. Here you can make a living doing rentals. It's a hustle, and it didn't feel like it wasn't a lot of integrity as a, from a moral standpoint. I just didn't love the transactional nature of it, and sales becomes much more relationship, which is what appeals to me. But they created a system where if you advertise here and you take pictures of properties, you can generate your own leads. So I realized like just doing their system was going to generate a certain amount of leads. That showing up at 9 in the morning or 8:30 every day in the office to be the first person to sign up on the walk-in sheet, that was another piece. And I went to college in Philadelphia, I went to Penn, and there's this huge network of Penn people in New York City. And so I was really just working my network. And I'm sure people have heard your network is your net worth. So, I mean, I was not afraid to tell everyone, hey, I'm in real estate. You know me, I'm smart, I'm super resourceful, and a lot of my friends at the time were renting. So it was like a natural progression that I grew with my clients, and I was studying my business like nobody else. I really started to know what blocks, all the different things that you need to know as a real estate agent, know your inventory. And then over time, I learned my way. But you asked if it was strategic. I think it was like a really throw every single thing at the wall kind of a strategy, if that's a strategy. It was like do all the things, be out all the time, constantly be talking about what you do, listen a lot for what people are looking for, and just show up and do all the things you can do to help people be, to move forward, find a
Yeah.
home or whatever it is.
Essentially using your people skills and your hard work ethic, combining them together and eventually learning and growing over time. And I think that's the thing that I see is a lot of times people coming from another industry, and maybe you have success in another industry and you come into real estate, like you have to remind yourself, like, this is my year one in real estate, comparing myself with my year five in other industry or whatever it might be. And
Not
it
gonna work.
takes time, and you've got to build that, because there's people that might be like, oh, Scott's in real estate now, like, great, let me see some, let him see, get a few closings under his belt, and then I'll work with him. And so you just have to remember that and give yourself a little bit of a runway here and have some grace to give yourself a chance. But then when people start to see you're successful, you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, and you can really help me, well then yeah, your business can grow if you continue to put in that hard work like you did.
I would just add one thing, Mike, is that I think early on in your career, because part of the book that I've written that's coming out next year, I talk a lot about it's not like you have to hire a real estate agent who's been doing this forever, and that's the only way as a buyer or a seller you're going to be successful.
Hmm.
Sometimes, when you're hiring, if you're in a position to hire people, they say like, I want to hire good athletes, hardworking people who are smart, who can really accelerate their learning and are just proactive. There's so many things that a brand new agent can have. It doesn't require lots of years of experience. So I think early on, you want to know whatever industry you're coming from, who are the 25 to 50 people in my life who are like my raving fans? They love me. They know how hard I work. They know that I'm going to do whatever it takes to be successful, that are going to believe in me before I have the quote unquote expertise, right? And if you, that's like a good platform upon which you can build a real business, real estate or anything, and sort of engage them and talk to them and just share your journey as you grow. And the more you're going to get confident over time. And to your point, I mean, yes, you have to have a lot of grace. You got to cut yourself a little bit of slack. I often tell new agents, it's going to take you 6 months before you close your first deal. You better have that sort of patience because otherwise you're going to get sunk.
It's really looking at, yeah, what's your best gift you have to offer? If you're a new agent, you're hungry and you've got time, right? So if you've got a client, you've got time to be able to pour into that client. And it's the same thing, when I was training agents on our teams in the past, it's, yeah, what is your leverage? What's your ability to differentiate yourself from other people? And yeah, as a new agent, it's probably leveraging a good relationship with a friend or family member mixed with the time that I have. And then, being a part of our team, we had good training, good resources, being able to help them so that even though they're new in real estate, they've got great people that they can go to for those answers. And so you're not having to figure it out on your own as a new agent. You're part of a team and you're kind of leveraging that value of the team. And so that was, really the value proposition that our new agents had.
Right. I tell the same thing. We tell our stories. We're doing like 100+ transactions this year. They get to tell all of those stories and all the ones that don't close, right? But they get to learn from every single one of those. I say, own those stories. We talk about them in our meetings so that you're just absorbing so much more than the actual deals you're doing when you get on a team. And I mean, that's one of many, many things that I think helps a new agent if they decide to be on a team.
Have you ever heard the phrase, you're the average of the top 5 people that you hang around? Well, real estate agents, I'm excited to increase your 5 with you. We're launching the Real Freedom Investor Agent Tribe to help you get educated and connect with others to build your real estate investing journey and also to help you along the way as you're working with real estate investors. So come check it out on our website, realfreedom.com. Go to the store. We have a membership, we have a mastermind group and private coaching to help you stay accountable to your real estate investing goals and to make sure that you connect with like-minded people to accelerate your progress and to cheer you on along the way. Check it out, realfreedom.com. Click on the store. Now, talk a little bit about your journey going from solo agent to forming a team, because now you've got a team of agents, you've got leverage, you've got, the ability to kind of train and hopefully pass on all that wisdom you've gained through over $1 billion worth of sales. So talk about what was it for you that made you decide, hey, let's do this team thing versus trying to run an operation on my own?
Well, first, we're looking at this. Oh, here's this guy who sold like $1.5 billion of real estate, and oh, he thinks he knows everything. A lot of this is trial and error over and making so many mistakes. The team structure started pretty innocently. I just reached a point where I couldn't. There were not enough hours in the day, and my wife and I were having our second child, and I was like, you know what? If I don't bring at least an assistant on, I'm never going to see my kids. So it was like a very like a necessity. And I burned that assistant out in a year. Like I totally managed her terribly. And she's a wonderful person, Emily. If you're listening out there, like she lives in Buffalo. She's awesome. And that was a tough learning. I was really sad when she left. And then later on, I'm like, I know exactly why she left. And so over time, it was like, bringing on an assistant, then bringing on people to help support showings. And then maybe I didn't really know how to delegate very well. I wasn't the best manager. And over time, you start to learn, okay, the way I do business, I need an operations person. I'm really like a visionary, and I'm really good at business development. Some team leaders are much better at like systems, really like getting in the weeds in the operations. For me, it was like right now I have the most amazing COO, Karen Leonardi, who is assisting and really like she is such a business partner. She's my work. There's that joke like people, oh, this is my work wife. I mean, at home, I'm the CEO of my life and my wife is my COO. At work, it's the same exact dynamic. So it's like there's a wonderful book that if people want to read called 10X is easier than 2X. And the idea is like you're looking for the who, not the how. You're looking for a person that fills a role of something that you don't do as well as they do. So it's like it was an ever it was a constant process of finding people who were better doing certain things than I was doing, and sort of building that out, making mistakes. People leave. You realize like you get more and more refined. I know I'm talking for a little while, but I would say 10 years ago was like the moment when I was burned out and realized, hey, I'm still taking on too much myself. And then that's when I was like, I really have to rejigger this, otherwise I'm going to burn out completely. And I think that was the 10 years. I really think of that as like the launch of the team that exists today, where I'm empowering people and doing more training. It grew out of a need. I've always loved being an entrepreneur and building businesses. However, it took on a different shift when I realized I had to get things off my plate and learn how to do that in a way that it's all about communication with clients. There's so much to it that you have to figure out over time what works for you. So there's definitely no one way to do it.
I mean, I'm a huge believer in real estate teams because I think it's really that idea of you get to plug in and help each other and utilize your best gifts. They get to utilize their best gifts. And even too, like from a leverage standpoint, I love when I get something under contract and I turn it over to transaction coordinator. That's what they do best, is handle the transaction and help with closing. You know, hey, you missed this signature here, or hey, this form's got to get signed, or hey, we've got this sort of thing. And so teams really are where people can plug in and really experience what's going to be the most value to them. You know, other times too, yeah, if you've got kids and your schedule doesn't allow necessarily to have all the availability as people that don't have kids, well, there's a ton of value there because, hey, I can't make this showing. I've got an agent on my team that can help, or I know when I'm showing up, I've got an admin team behind me. So I really love the value of a good real estate team. For the people that, you know, are on your team, what do you feel like is that value to them? Like the people that have come and been successful on your team, like where do you feel like they can kind of fit in and plug in and have success versus trying to do it on their own?
Right. So the way there are a whole, it kind of stacks on, one on top of the other in terms of what an agent would see in terms of value. But I realize like the things that we want to do, the things that we feel like are the right things to do, not every team leader does. So first, there are meetings. We have two meetings per week. One is a Zoom meeting it's a motivation Monday. We're getting everybody fired up and we're sharing like all of our wins from the weekend. Then we have a lunch on Wednesdays where we talk about our week, what we learned, what went right. And then I try to do some in each of those, there's like a training component. So they're getting like constant positivity and training, like all pushed into one. And then every member of the team has time for a one-on-one operations wise. So like keep them accountable to the goals they've set. Like we work really hard on helping them create a vision for what they want to do with their business, why they want to do that, like getting under the hood so that they can tap into that every day and then holding them accountable. And then for me, my work with them is to brainstorm. What's the challenge? Let's figure it out. Let's come up with some steps, some ideas on how to get you over, around, through those challenges. It's like, I want to build it. So what happens is we're like trying to like time travel to the end of the year, like where this person's being successful and they're so proud of all the things that they've been able to accomplish, and like get them really fired up for all the things that they're doing. They're like, what can you do today? Go see some more properties. Like just make sure that they're constantly doing, like taking action that they can control, as opposed to like complaining about the things that aren't working or the market, all of the things that are, they can't control mortgage rates any more than I can, so like, and it doesn't matter. Like, let's go like focus on the things we can control. So it's a constant accountability, it's a positivity. And then more than that, as they grow, they realize like all of the back of house, like you said, the transaction coordinator, the full-time social media marketing person, the operations person, all the advertising, marketing, all the stuff that gets done. If they're a business development person, if they're out there, forming relationships and showing properties, they need to focus on that to make money, to like grow their business. And they realize like the piece that they are giving to the team is like, it's a bargain for all of that they get, because they get to learn, grow, accelerate everything. And in terms of like a new agent, we look back on a year like this, which has been arguably like the hardest year in real estate for a lot of people. And every single person on my team has had their very best year. I can very comfortably say like, You are successful because of you've put yourself in this environment where the conditions were really good for you to be successful, and you leaned in and worked hard, and that's why you got here. And look at all the stuff you learn, and it's like a really, we meet every week, every other week. We meet every quarter and do reviews. It's like constant refinement so that they stay on path to their vision, which, by the way, is like the same thing that I'm doing with my buyers and my sellers. I mean, it's what's the goal? Let's get it, let's really get clear on what that goal is and that vision, and then like reverse engineer it. How are we going to get there?
Yeah, it really is the idea of kind of this 1+1 = 3 mentality. I know that a lot of agents are like, oh, I'm giving the team my commission. And it's like, no, 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 no. That's probably in an unsuccessful state because you feel like you're doing the team a favor by giving some of your commission to them from a transaction, wherein the reality is a well-oiled team, you see the value of what you're paying into the team or what the team is getting out of that because, yeah, you've got everybody in the right seat on the right bus, and you can do far more business and net far more yourself than you could on your own because of the great people that you've hired. And there's an economies of scale there too, where, yeah, me as a solo agent, if I'm not paying per file for a transaction, I can't have a transaction coordinator. When you've got a high functioning team, you've also got better high performing people serving the team as well. So it really is an awesome environment. I love teams, have always been on teams because I feel like there's a ton of value. And then, like you said, in a year like this year, you need some help, you need some support, you need some counseling to guide you through the challenges. And so teams are definitely where it's at. I love it.
We're therapists for our buyers and sellers, and then we need to be that for each other.
Now, talk a little bit about, you'd mentioned you got a book coming out, The Pursuit of Home. You also have your podcast, The Pursuit of Home. How did that come to be, or kind of what's the message that you want to get across through that media?
Well, the book and the podcast, they're companions of one another. So the podcast is I'm having conversations with real buyers, buying real estate, and the things that they're going through. And the book, the message is there's this world, this emotional, psychological, spiritual world that everyone dives into when they go to buy a home, that everyone goes through and no one talks about. It's not on social media. It's not on reality TV. Yet, if you just interviewed any buyer, anyone after they close are like, oh my God, let me tell you the stories. But like no one's having, so this is a conversation that needs to be brought out into the light. And after 20 years and thousands of transactions, I've seen all of the things that happen along this journey. So this is an act of service. It came out because I'm like, there's no book. There are all these transactional books, and there are all these books, and we're having this conversation, like helping agents become better, but there's no guide to the emotional journey that people take when they go to buy a home. So what are the roadblocks? What are the bumps in the road? How can you be prepared for them as a buyer, as a first-time buyer? How can you get to know yourself better? How can you choose an agent better? How can you, how do you really, you make a big checklist and then you realize like nothing, even though you think you know what you want, you don't. So it's like the whole journey of ultimately finding a better home that supports you more is like a better life outcome. I mean, I think that there's a conversation here how your home makes your life improve. It's a partner in it's a launching pad for your life. So the book grew out of that desire. And as I started to define how we work and how I think we work differently than a lot of other teams, it was like, you know what, this book really needs to happen. And, I'm really grateful that we found a publisher that wanted to get on board. And, we're just kind of getting the final touches on it. And it's going to, be out next year. We're really excited about it.
My wife is a therapist, and we talk about how really real estate is therapy because you're navigating, whether it's multiple parties looking to purchase a property or sell a property, right? Sometimes you got to play middle person and mediator, understanding that it might be due to a job change, a life change, move up, move down. My commute's changing as a result of this. I'm spending all my time after work now packing up and getting ready to move. And so there's so much stress. And so if a buyer or a seller, you're on the phone with them and they snap at you or they're short at you, you have to remember you're interacting with everybody during probably one of their most stressful times of their life. And that's your clients. It's everybody's most stressful time is who you deal with every day. And you've got to remember that and understand that and help process through that. So I love that analogy. That's it. That's exactly where people are at when they're buying and selling.
Look, amen. I mean, look, all I can say is that the more like I hope that we change the conversation for agents as well. Like I'm very clear-eyed about the experience that home buyers talk about with agents. I think there's a way to make the entire population of 2 million plus real estate agents out there like lift up that professional level, because the more they really fully understand what buyers are going through and sellers, we're doing our business is 50-50. The more they can really feel that and understand exactly what you said, that we're meeting people at their most stressed, like the more compassion we have, the more effective we're going to be. I mean, I think every agent should buy a home. Go through that yourself, right? Go get a mortgage and see how that makes you feel. Like all your issues are going to come out and on full display, and then you realize, wait a minute, I gotta be the most well-adjusted person in this room if I'm going to be a good agent. You got to work on yourself. So I think it's really exciting to me. I mean, getting to work on my team, getting to help buyers like go through this process. I know it's so sad. It's very satisfying, and like getting to do this and communicate this on a bigger scale to more people is really fulfilling.
Scott, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. The book, Pursuit of Home, you've got your podcast, The Pursuit of Home. If you're listening to this and you're in the state of New York, reach out. And if it's not a territory you serve, you've got a great referral for somebody. Anything else that you want to add here before we end our time together?
They can check me out on LinkedIn. I tell a lot of fun stories about what people do in New York. They're crazy, but I think in many ways they're applicable to wherever people are living and wherever agents are who listen to this are doing business too.
Well, thank you, Scott, so much for coming on the show, sharing your wisdom, and best of luck to you as you guys continue in the future.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate being here.